Hey everyone, today we're talking about third declension adjectives and adverbs. Okay, and you can find all of this in your book actually over a series of pages, a few pages in chapter 13, 151 to 153. So we're just going to talk about all the different types of third declension adjectives and also third declension adverbs all at once. Okay, so first thing we need to know about third declension adjectives is that there are three types of third declension adjectives, and they're given the name terminations. Termination is just a fancy way of saying ending. And so there are three termination adjectives, and they're called three termination because they have a different ending for masculine, feminine, and neuter. So I'm going to give you an example of a three termination adjective. So we'll use keller, because that's the one we use in the book. Keller, kelleris, and kellere would be the vocab entry for this. Okay, and so keller is the masculine form, kelleris is the feminine form, and kellere is the neuter form. Okay, there are also two termination, to make that red, two termination adjectives, and these are third declension adjectives that have two different endings, and so an example of that would be brewis, brewe. Okay, so in this adjective, brewis is both the masculine and feminine form, and brewe is the neuter form. Okay, so it's two termination because it has two different parts to the vocab entry. The first one signifying masculine and feminine, same form, and the second one, brewe, would be neuter. Okay, contrast that with the three termination. There's a separate form for masculine, feminine, and neuter. Okay, and then the final type is one termination. And an example of a one termination adjective would be potens, which means powerful. And so potens, this form is masculine, feminine, and neuter. Okay, and when this happens, in order to complete the vocab entry, you will see the genitive singular, which is potentis. But that's not actually part of what makes it a terminate, one termination, two termination, or three termination. It's just that's how Latin textbooks and Latin dictionaries give the vocab entry for a one termination. So potens, potentis, but potens is masculine, feminine, and a neuter. So let's say we wanted to take these adjectives and modify some nouns with them. Let's start with the one termination. Okay, if I wanted to say a powerful man, I would say, I'll go ahead and clear this. If I wanted to say a powerful man, I would say we're potens, right? A powerful man. And if I wanted to say a powerful woman, I would say femina potens. And if I wanted to say a powerful animal, right? Animal is neuter. I would say animal potens. Okay, since potens is one termination, it has the same ending from same form, same gender, masculine, feminine, and neuter. Okay, um, and if we contrast this with a two termination, okay, let's use brewis for example. Okay, and we'll use the same adjectives. Okay, so if I said, or same nouns, excuse me. So if I said we're brewis, that would be a short man. And since masculine and feminine for two termination is the same, oops, it's supposed to be femina, femina brewis would be a short woman. And then if I wanted to use neuter, we'll use animal. Remember, animal is neuter. Animal brewe, a short animal. Okay, so for two termination, the vocab entry will be brewis, brewe. Okay, brewis is masculine and feminine. Brewe is neuter. For potens, it's the same. Masculine, feminine, and neuter. Same word, because it's one termination. Okay, but for a two termination, brewis, masculine and feminine are the same, and neuter is a different form. Okay, so we had wir, brewis, femina, brewis, but animal, brewe. Okay, now we'll do an example with three termination. Okay, so our three termination example in the chapter was keller. So keller, kelleris, and kellere. Right, and so if I wanted to say, and keller means fast, or swift, or quick. Okay, so if I wanted to say a fast man, I would say wir keller. If I wanted to say a fast woman, I would say femina, and then I'd have to use the feminine form, kelleris. And if I wanted to say a fast animal, animal, remember animal is neuter, and now I have to use the neuter form, kellere. Okay, so you'll be able to tell just by looking at the vocab entry what the termination is, whether it's three termination or two termination or one termination. You'll always be able to tell if you know the vocab entry. Okay, now let's look at declining these, and we'll decline Keller out in full. We won't decline all of the different types out in full. One termination, two termination, and three termination, just because I don't want to take up that much time on the video, and you can obviously look at the forms, the paradigms in the book, but we'll do the singular. Okay, we'll do the singular and plural for Keller, so I'm going to set up just the singular to start. We'll go nominative, genitive, dative, accusative, and ablative. And up here we're going to put masculine, feminine, and neuter. And then our forms are keller, kelleris, kellere. Okay, the genitive is kelleris, kelleris, kelleris. Okay, it's third declension all the way across. And you can tell from the vocab entry, keller, kelleris, right, the is, take away the is, that's the genitive singular ending, that will give you the base. So the base of this word is keller, just like the base of puer is puer. Okay, so dative forms would be kelleri, celeri, celeri, just like regular third declension. Okay, accusative singular, celerem. Feminine is also celerem. And then the neuter is celere, because remember nominative and accusative are always the same in neuter. Okay, ablative, celeri. Okay, that's a change. So adjectives always have an I in the ablative singular for third declension. Celeri and celeri. Okay, so that is the singular for a third declension adjective that's three termination. Okay, now we'll do the plural. Okay, so I'm going to set my chart back up with the 5 main cases: nominative, genitive, dative, accusative, and ablative. Okay, I have my masculine, feminine, and neuter. Okay, in the plural, celeres. Feminine is also celeres. And the neuter is celeria. Remember, neuter plural always ends in A, but with adjectives you add an I in there. They look just like neuter I stems, like if we were to decline mare or animal. So think of third declension adjectives as being declined in the neuter, like mare and animal. Okay, genitive, celerium. So we have an IUM in the genitive plural, just like I stems. Celerium. Celerium. Okay, dative is celeribus, celeribus, and celeribus. Okay, accusative, celeres. Feminine is also celeres, and neuter, of course, is celeria, because remember, nominative and accusative are the same in neuter. And then ablative is the same as dative, celeribus, celeribus, and celeribus. Okay, so check pages 152 and 153 for explanations of how to decline two termination and one termination, but you'll find that there's not really much difference in terms of the declensions. Okay, and now that we've talked about the terminations for third declension adjectives and we've declined one, I want to talk about third declension adverbs. Okay, we've done adverbs for first and second declension. Remember, take off the US and add an E. And we've also done some irregulars like magnus to magnopere and parvus to parum and bonus to bene, etc. But third declension adjectives, or sorry, third declension adverbs, which are also on page 153, are formed slightly differently. Okay, so the way that you form these is you add iter to the base. Okay, so for instance, if we have the word celer, right, celeris, celere, okay, which means swift. And remember, the base is formed by dropping the genitive singular ending, which here is also going to be the is from the feminine. So the base of celer is celer. So celer plus iter gives us celeriter, which means swiftly or quickly. Okay, let's do another example. We have fortis. Okay, fortis, forte, right, which means brave or strong. Okay, if we take off the is, gives us fort, and then we add iter, so fortiter, bravely. Okay, we'll do one more example. Okay, let's do a one termination one. So Felix, Felix, Felicus, Felix, Felicus. Take off the is. Feliciter. Okay, feliciter means happily. Okay, or fortunately. Felix can mean happy or fortunate or lucky. Okay, and then one more thing about third declension adverbs. If you have an adjective that ends in ns, which we do in this chapter, we have potains, right? If it ends in ns, then you add ter to the base, not iter. So you drop out the I, basically, is what happens. This happens with adjectives that end in ns or adjectives that end in ax, like audax, or ox, like ferox. We haven't had these two adjectives yet, but we'll have adjectives like this in subsequent future chapters. So keep that in mind. All right. So potains, the vocab entry potains, potentis. Okay. So if we take off the is for our base, potent, and then potenter. So we've got potenter. Okay, potenter would be powerfully. Okay, would be how we transform this into an adverb. Okay, and thanks for hanging in, and that is all for this time, and see you again in the future.